Hello everyone, welcome to GDG's first tutorial of semester 2. This is your speaker, Clinton, one of the execs in GDG, and we're going to be making a game using prefab parts from a game that we made as a tutorial. And once you're done, you get to play and build it and test it out. Okay, we're going to cover exactly what's going to go on this video. So first of all, it's this overview. Secondly, I'll go over how to download Unity as well as VS Code. Now, Unity is one of the most popular game engines for indie developers. And it's probably the biggest community in terms of free game engines out there. Definitely a good first choice. VS Code is a programming editor. It's if you've ever done engineering, it's a similar version of Visual Studio Community. I'll give a brief comparison over VS Code versus Visual Studio Community, and for this video I'll be using VS Code. Thirdly, I'll talk a bit about GDG as a whole and our tutorial schedule. Fourthly, game development. I'll give a brief overview about the different parts of what goes into a game, as well as a brief primer into game development as a whole. And fifth of all, we'll finally get into our tutorial and actually get to the game itself. Now, if you ever have any questions about these slides or the tutorial game itself, feel free to hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Discord, or Twitch chat. Now, I think the Twitch chat is kind of, well, non-functional right now, but just shoot us a message on one of the other free sites and we'll help you out. The top link is to our drive. This is where we put all our tutorial information stuff, learning materials, these slides itself, as well as the other useful resources that you might want to check out. Great, now let's go through Unity. Okay, so Unity Hub is sort of like a manager for all the Unity versions. Really useful if you're holding more than one Unity editor, and to be honest, if you're doing game dev, you most likely will eventually. And to do that, you just search up Unity Hub, download, and then just install it. Once you run Unity Hub, after installing it and doing all the permission stuff, create a personal account or use an existing one if you already have one, then sign in. Go to Installs and then click Add to add your Unity version. Although, do note the 4 GB space required for every editor install. Now, we recommend the latest official release for personal use, as that comes with the latest stuff and generally more stable. There's also more experimental stuff, as well as sometimes different user interface. I know that Unity 2020 is moving to a completely different look compared to previous versions, so what you're going to see is different to what's shown in tutorials if you choose to use this version for future projects. Also, something interesting is that Unity is coming to bring along visual scripting as one of its main tools. And if you're ever familiar with that, visual scripting is like programming except without using code, which is great for non-programmers to learn Unity and game development as a whole. This is kind of not relevant down here due to lockdown, but we will just repeat that. If you choose to use Unity computers, University computers, the room that we book uses version 2018.1.2. If you have a different version, there might be some weird bugs that happen, and basically it'll be due to the version differences. So to reduce the chance of random bugs that's completely irrelevant to the tutorial, download 2018.1.2. Now to do this, you go to the Unity version, visit the download archive. This is on the browser. Search up 2018.x, scroll down to Unity 2018.2 and click Unity Hub. This will tell your Unity Hub program that you have in your computer to download this version of Unity. I'll do a quick run over right now. Alright, so searching up Unity Hub. You click this button, you'll get prompted with an install prompt for installer, and that covers the first slide. Once you're done with that, Unity version, no, Unity archive download. Go to download archive. Search up 2018.x. Scroll down to I believe it was this version. Yep. And then click Unity Hub. As you can see, this is a list of my projects. Down here's the installs, and you can see that I have 2018.1.2f1. Now, this is the project. This is the version you'll use for tutorials in University of Auckland in the future. I'm not signed in now, but if you're doing this for your first time, you'll need to make an account and sign in. Once you've downloaded this through the Unity website, you just locate and find the install. If you want to add modules, for example, if you want documentation, standard assets, example project, different build support, or language packs for that matter, you could just add modules in the top right corner here. Now, I'm going to quickly go over how to get Visual Studio Code for you programmers out there, and I'll be using it for my tutorials, so it's best you get familiar with the interface either through these videos or just simple tutorial videos online. I'll quickly go over how to download VS Code if you're interested in programming. I'm sure most of you are. But if not, you could skip ahead to the, I guess, 20 or so minutes ahead when I'll actually get into the tutorial itself. But for now, to Visual Studio. I won't click on the links here, but just know that VS Code is faster to load and has cross-platform functionality. Not to mention being portable if you need to. You could bring around in a stick and not install anything. It is also smaller than Visual Studio Community. VS Code itself is like 300 megabytes or smaller, versus Visual Studio Community at 2 gigabytes, which is great for game developers because, you know, portability. Of course, that being said, Visual Studio Community Edition is a fully fledged IDE, and it's way better, well, then again, way better for whole project solutions, those big jobs and stuff. I don't have much experience on that front, because since I use VS Code for game dev a lot, and I haven't touched Visual Studio after engineering part 2. But yeah, since it's a fully fledged IDE, Community is good, but good for powerful, complicated debugging, and yeah. Now these are the steps for installing VS Code. It's a bit unusual when you're trying to use it for Unity. There's 2 other things you need to install. The first thing is the .NET SDK. and the second one is the VS Code extensions. So I'll quickly go into each of these. Okay, so this is the Visual Studio Code. I'm just searching it up on Google. Just click on the first link here. Just choose your platform. Prefer the stable one. And once you do so, you'll probably come up with some installer, and then it'll ask you to, do the basic install stuff. This here is a short blurb on the difference between VS Code and Visual Studio Community. Streamlined code editor with support for development operations like debugging. Now, for those .NET SDKs, you need to have one that's suitable for Unity version. For me, it's .NET Framework 4.7.1. I think it's, developer pack. You need this, or else your VS Code won't connect with Unity properly, and autocomplete won't work for you. In case you're wondering, autocomplete is like, it tries to guess what words you're trying to put into your program, and if it has access to the Unity's classes, then it could just fill it in quickly for you, which is great for development. It also checks Unity classes and stuff like that, but I'll get into that another time. If downloading this wasn't enough, you could also check here and download the right core, and they may fix your problem right here. Otherwise, you could just shoot us a question and we'll answer it for you. Okay, back to... Okay, I'll quickly go over the extensions now. I'll briefly open up VS Code and show one of the script files I'm using, as well as the extensions. Sorry, my mic may have been muted for a while now, in that case. Oops. But before, I was just going over VS Code and stuff. Alright, so once you get into Unity, have it installed, open up, go to Files, then Preferences, and you'll be able to see this option for changing your external editor, and you want to select Visual Studio Code, or Visual Studio Community Edition if that's what you're using. Oh, sorry, that's Edit Preferences. My bad. Okay, before we get into things, I'll just quickly go over GDG. That's us, the Game Developer Guild, University of Auckland's own club dedicated to game development and all its aspects. This will be a quick 10-minute introduction. Our club's focus is on teaching people game development, getting people interested in game development, getting people together to do all kinds of fun stuff, as well as also industry contacts and collaborations with other clubs and or research departments in University of Auckland and elsewhere. Now, this club started in 2018, I believe, and it's definitely grown a lot bigger than it was at the beginning. And certainly, I hope it continues to grow this fast, and we could get some awesome new milestones in our belt. Of course, our club's community is paramount to this, so we hope that you have a fun time here and connect with others on your journey to become a game dev pro. Given the lockdown, it's actually easier than ever to dedicate time to game development. You don't have to worry about traveling to uni or elsewhere. I mean, there's not much else you could do in level 3 lockdown. But yeah, this is a great opportunity for you to sit down on your computer and draw art, make music, program, learn game development, and all that kind of stuff. Here's our schedule. You may remember this from launch night. Due to lockdown, we had to skip out last week's club night as we changed for online presentation. And today is tutorial 1. Next week will be tutorial 2. The week after will be tutorial 3. Now, assuming level 2, assuming level 3 stays in place the whole time, I don't suspect these things will change. These will all be mostly online. We may have to adjust the second half semester quite a bit, to be honest. Not to mention AGM. But on to the next point. Okay, so for this tutorial, there'll be 4 tutorials, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here I only mention the first 3. Today we'll talk about the foundations of Unity, that is, Unity workflows and stuff. All these tutorials is about Unity workflow. This one's just about putting prefabs together for tutorial 1. Now I'll briefly demonstrate how the things we learn here will carry on to the second and third tutorials. The green square on the left represents like the work we did today, and as you can see, it's the exact same as for tutorial 2. That doesn't mean we're redoing the stuff, just that we'll be building upon it for future tutorials. As demonstrated here. The red content will be importing art and animations, and that's what we focus into next week. For code, it will be a different set of tasks, using the same tutorial 1, but it won't be building upon tutorial 2's stuff. That gray area represents code tasks and learning. The reason why we did this is so that people don't get left behind if they miss an in-between tutorial, and they could easily edit or adjust stuff to the whims once we finish. Okay, on to game development. A brief overview of what game development entailed for me, at least, and hopefully a smooth ride for you as well. If you just started, have a think about, what you hope to achieve. Tell a story, make some fun multiplayer game, perhaps, or just try to be like one of those rich indie developers that hit the jackpot. That's quite a lofty goal, but if your aspirations are that high, then you have to put in pretty tough work, of course. Game development isn't just one and done. Isn't just an overnight success thing. You have to put in tons of effort. There's many aspects of game dev, much more than just coding. For example, there's art, music, marketing. There's also community management, as well as post-release support. Even social movements could be portrayed effectively in video games too, if you're into that kind of thing. And similarly, you should also think about how much effort and time you're willing to put in for game dev. It's definitely a pretty involved process. Yeah. Now this here, the DK effect, the Dunning-Kruger effect, this will be very important for basically any learning skill, for that matter, especially more so for creative things, where the fallacy of, it's just my style, therefore the basics or the foundations doesn't need to be learnt, is a very, very big obstacle to learning and self-improvement. At the beginning, you start from the bottom left, no confidence. That's understandable from a complete beginner. But as you start to learn and scratch the surface, you quickly gain confidence. Unfortunately, there hits a point where you start losing confidence due to realizing that there's actually heaps and heaps of stuff in every aspect of game development. Like, people could spend their lives in just one aspect of game development and still not completely master it. However, it all depends on effort and time, and of course, the mindset, which is the most important thing. That blue range is where I think I am after 2 years of self-learning. Started in 2018. Mostly self-learned programming and stuff. And yeah, to be honest, I'm not even sure if I'm over the they call it the Mount I won't say name, but basically it's confidence mountain. You have to overcome that and the huge drop if you want to get to where the good people are on the right side of the graph. Now I'll quickly go over the different workflows for Unity, different aspects of game development. This is just very brief. I myself am a programmer, so I wouldn't focus much on the art or story or audio. I don't know too much about that, and research was quite a while ago. But basically, art. People who do art, they could go into concept art. This is usually a very popular role, as you remember from launch night. Don't have to worry about details and stuff. But basically just generating ideas for people to base off their games or designs on, or levels. There's a texture artist for 2D people, as well as, object surfaces, 3D modeling, animation, and user interface. And the tools for these, I listed these tools because they're very common for artists to use, at least from what I know. There's Photoshop, of course, expensive, but professional, and very popular. There's also Sprite and Pixco for pixel art, which is what I'm into. And there's Inkscape for vector art. For 3D modeling, there's Maya, Blender, and ZBrush, all very popular programs for making 3D models for 3D games. In Unity, the art of games would be built using cameras, sprites, rigging, animation, and post-processing. So there's many other things that could be used in Unity. This is just a short example. But all of these have a big effect in how the visual aspect of games is portrayed and achieved. This is simply programming. I'm pretty sure like a big portion of you already know programming. VS Code, Visual Studio, or whatever IDE you prefer. Unity basically, actually I'd say Unity is pretty programmer focused. I'll get into a bit more details in the actual tutorial. From what I can tell, the most popular, programming task, i.e. programming focused, is gameplay programming. These people make the gameplay, the mechanics, stuff like that. And there's the systems. I am being a bit broad here, I realize, but systems involves things like infrastructure, internet, servers, stuff like that, as well as save files, save systems, just backend stuff, I guess. There's also shaders programming. These people work on making the art feel of the game. It's like a mix between art and programming. They use visual scripting for this a lot, which I mentioned earlier. It's really complicated stuff. I don't know, it's like rocket science to me. But it could be something interesting if you're looking for that really unique art style. You want to learn a bit of visual scripting and programming, so you can mix both art and programming into one. This here's audio. Usually, when it comes to time rushing, I get the feeling that games tend to rush audio, which is actually a bit of a sacrifice because audio could really add to the experience of a game. The audio roles, usually music engineer or composer. They compose the music itself. There's a sound engineer, sound effects, making things like pack punch. There's voice acting, of course. For indie games, not that well used, but for AAA games, voice acting is very, very common. Now, these composing tools, these are free. Well, GarageBand is free for iOS. Audacity, OMS, Ardour. I highly suggest doing a bit of research before picking one and getting into it. Some of them are way easier to learn than others. In Unity, audio gets realized through listeners, dynamic music, SFX triggers, and stuff like that. Of course, once again, this is not an exhaustive list of tools, and I highly encourage you guys to research more if you're interested into that kind of thing. For story, I will briefly cover that in another semester. I won't cover it this semester. Alright, onto the tutorial. Foundations of Unity. So I'll repeat once again, the link to download our tutorial drives is shown there. This is a zip file, just unzip it and then dump it into where you usually store your Unity projects, or you will, where you will store your Unity projects. And if you got any questions, just ask our social media pages and we'll respond quickly. Okay, I'll give a brief go over through the different parts in the Unity tutorial drive to see what's up there. This here is our tutorial drive. As you can see, this is semester 2 schedule. This is our launch night files. This is also where you'll find Unity download presentation, as well as Austin's speech, Austin's slides, as well as the launch night presentation. Here you'll find 3 things. This here's the one I didn't mention earlier. This is the executable for the game itself. If you download it, you can actually play the game and see its complete state. This here's the slides I'm referring to, and this here's the learning material. So just right click and download. Okay. So I'll quickly go over the slides, and then do a live run through of how to put everything together. It's basically just boils down to putting in prefabs and stuff. So first of all, open up Unity 2018.1.0f, oh 2FO. Sorry, that's a typo there. And then create a new 2D project in the Unity Hub using this version. Then drag in everything from the learning materials archive into the project window. The project window is down in the middle here. Now put the main scene and meta file in the pre-existing scene folder. I'll give a brief description of the Windows, Unity's Windows. Sorry, so then you won't have to excuse me. You won't have to worry about that for now. Create 2 scenes named switch and game. For this, the exact words switch and game are very important. The game will break unless it's exactly these word case. For the second set of instructions, put prefabs into the right scenes as indicated by folder. The only prefabs that aren't in a folder is the player and player bullet 1, 2 prefabs. It's because they belong to both scenes, so you drag it in both. In order to fully work, you need to create a layer underneath File, Project Settings. Wait, sorry. Edit, Project Settings. Then click Layers, or Tags and Layers. Then you also want to create tags, bullet, enemy, and attach them to your respective game objects. You can also change the controls under Input Manager. Once you're done putting everything together, you just press the play button after setting the scene to main, and then you can test things out. If you manage to figure out the piece of the puzzle, you could just click File, Build, and then have your own executable that can show others, as well as play around with the build settings itself, I guess. And that's it. If you want to, you can also mess around with the prefab assets to create different pixel art, or even do something completely crazy, like, I don't know, some horror 2D shooter, I guess. Alright, I'll get into an actual real life stream of me building the game itself, given the learning materials that you have. is the Unity screen. I've already moved everything into it. That is the project window, and we'll start from there. If you want to refer to slides, just download the slides from the Unity drive, and then you can see this side by side with this video for a better learning experience. Okay, clear all these errors. So this is 2018.1.2 F1. Actually, hold on a second. Okay. So, drag the main into scenes. You find that font as a font. Prefabs. This is the main stuff here. Scenes. Just ignore the sample scene for now. Just click on main if you want to see an example of things being put in place. So this is title screen called "Thank You, Come Again," made by Salt and Lemonade. Here's the image. There's 2 buttons, and there's a vending machine here. Don't know why the vending machine is there, but it just does. Okay, going back into the project window. There's all the scripts in this game. The example scripts are just like, just ignore the example scripts for now. Actually, they don't do anything, but yeah, these scripts are the main scripts of the game. Clicking on any of them, oh, actually, I'll show you guys how to add that editor to your Unity editor as default. So you could open up whenever you press a C# script file. Go to Edit, Preferences. I'm not sure if you can see this. Give me a second. Yeah, you can't see it. Okay. Need to go full screen for this one. So, by clicking Unity Preferences, yep, over here, go to External Tools, then select one of these. I also have Community, but I prefer using Visual Studio Code. Alright, so just close that. If you want to change the inputs, which I mentioned in the slides, you can find it in project settings here. Input, tags, and layers. Those 2 are the ones you need to get this game fully running. Alright, for the sprites, there's all the sprites and animations in the game. And if you're messing around and you decide that, oh crap, I made some irreversible change, just drag and drop from here. You need to resplice it though. You can ask us how to splice it if you're stuck. But that's not the main focus of the tutorial. The main focus is the prefabs and the scenes. So just casually make a new scene. We'll call it game. Alright, and just double click the scene. Alright, you'll want to click on the game folder. Make sure you zoom in into the main camera. Stick in this boundary. This is the floor of the game. Yeah, you'll be able to step on the floor like this. If it weren't for this boundary, you would just fall through the floor, and that wouldn't be very fun at all, would it? Stick in the bullet container over here. The display. The display contains your main camera, so you don't need this one anymore. Canvas for rendering these user interface elements, UI. And event system for buttons and stuff. Just drag in the rest of the prefabs here. The enemy, doesn't matter where you place them as long as it's inside the camera view. Just ignore these for now. You can put them in if you want, but it's kind of like not needed. And then the stage itself, just stick it in a random place. You can always adjust it later. Now, gotta make those inputs and layers. If you want to test it before putting all the prefabs, you'd want to change the input and layers first, before pressing the play button over here. So fire 1, this one. I don't want left control for firing, I want Z. And X for fire 2. You can also press mouse 1 and 2 to shoot. Okay. We also want to add in some tags and layers. Oh, it turns out I already have these. Huh. So, double check. Okay, the enemy is here already. And the stage, sorry, the boundary needs to be put in. Create an extra layer here called floor. This means that the code will check for an object with layer floor, and if the player is too close to it, if the player is close enough, they can jump from the floor, but otherwise they can't. And this is the player here. Okay, let's see if it runs. Oh, it runs pretty well. I'm the player on the left side and the enemy is on the right side, shooting more squares as projectiles, and everything's working fine. Okay, once you're here and you don't know how to quit, you press escape. That lets you escape out of play. Okay, well, you just click on the play button here to escape out of play mode. You can also press Ctrl-Shift-P to pause it if you want to mess around. Okay, now let's go make the other scene. Let's go at the switch scene, and we delete this useless sample scene over here. Okay, we want to save the scene before shifting away, and let's put in order other prefabs for this scene. Oh, oops! I just realized I forgot to put in the game manager's prefab, but I'll get back to it when I get back to the other scene. Let's put in the switch prefabs now. There's these 5 coins. They represent switches. Of course, you put in the boundary. And you realize that the boundary is a lot bigger. And that's because the main camera itself is bigger. That's more like it. Now, put the shiny sparkle over here representing door somewhere near here. And that will be like 9 and negative 3.6 for the position. This may seem arbitrary, but you'll understand once I put in these switches into the game. So I'll just put in here 1. Oh, I should put these in order. Hold up. I'll put this one over here. This one is actually the second one. This one's the 4th one. This one's the 1st one. And this one's the last one. This is completely arbitrary, but this is just the way I built it, so I'm just putting it this way. Okay. And the background sprite called front, which is invisible now, but if you were to actually see it, it will look like this. Let's make it the right place. Okay, that looks about right. Oh, maybe a bit to the right. Okay, and move your little sparkle here to match the door. Alright, great. Now, if you don't want to, you should probably leave, you could leave it like this, but I'll just leave it like this for dramatic effect. Great, now let's see what happens. Ah. Just like earlier, jumping around, moving, shooting. But what happens if I do this? Ta-da! You see this script over here for this particular switch, sprite switch, actually changes the sprites between a set of 2 sprites. Now, this seems kinda did, so we'll just click this one called animations and everything starts moving. Now let's turn off everything and go back. Here, you just press jump to interact as mentioned in the instructions. Oh. Okay. So some settings you need to adjust, which I will do so shortly. Going back to game scene, I forgot to put in the game manager, so I'll do that shortly. Okay. Save. Now let's see what happens when we click start. Ah, right. Okay, I know why. I know what's the problem here. Okay, in order for the scene manager to recognize, oh, so this is each of these is a scene, and there's a scene manager that controls which one leads to which. Okay, I'll add this in the PowerPoint, the presentation instructions later, so other people don't get left behind. But basically, you go to build settings, and then you make sure you add this, and drag in the other 2, and delete this useless empty one. Now, the scenes load in order, so whenever you build the game, that is, when you press build, it creates an executable, and the first scene is the main scene that's listed on the top here. Alright, so now that it's added, should be able to recognize the game. And what do you know? If I continue onwards, ta-da! Now I'll skip out the drawn out boss fight, and do it again, except this time with animations and sprites. And oh, alright, this button just I wonder what this button does, but I won't do it. Oh, okay. This needs some adjusting. So to go back to a game scene, you realize that the floor is actually a bit too low, in which case you just adjust it upwards or downwards slightly. Try and match it up with the user interface and stage. Alright, move the player up so that he's not just starting in the middle of the floor. Alright. Now let's try this all over again. Start. Jump up. 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 Okay. The floor is still not aligned exactly, but good enough. If there were errors, you can see in the console here, and then you can figure out what's wrong. And it appears that the enemy is actually not shooting anything. But that's okay for us, because that means we can defeat the boss really easily. Yeah, we did it. We beat the enemy, and we're back here. So you can mess with the switches again. And that's the game. I'll look over that. Let's see. Let's see why the enemy isn't shooting. So if you want to see why the enemy isn't shooting, you just go to the particular scene you want to edit, and then double click on the enemy. And there's probably some very complicated stuff here. It's probably something to do with prefab, so I'll try sticking that and see if that works. Go to game, put in the enemy bullets. Oh. Now if you want to test this scene, you just so that's a problem. Bullet container. Alright, you realize it's actually starting off here, but that's okay because that's the way it's supposed to be. Okay, good. The enemy spawns now, and it doesn't hit you because the enemy hit on is off, which means that spawning it, bullets don't have a collider, so they just fly right past you. Now if I turn this on, it should hit me now, and it does some damage. Oof. My HP is slowly decreasing. Oh no, I'm in danger. Let's make this fancy now. Alright. Oh, it's getting pretty hard now. I wonder if I'll survive. Oh no. I did. And back here. Okay. And that was the game. If you want to build it, just go to File and then Build Settings. Oh, I wonder if you can see this. Okay. So yeah, go to Build, Build and Run. And then you choose a file. Just pick a random as file. Oh, make a new folder. Tim. Oh. Oh, there's a typo, but who cares? Wait till it builds, and then it'll run the game. Now this is a full screen app, so I'm not sure if it will show on the screen here, but let's see. Alright. Okay. Start. You can see the animations actually stop whenever this thing is not selected. That might be something to play again in your own time. Mess around with. Okay. Let's defeat this enemy for good. Trash spot. Almost there. Ta-da! Okay, and that was a victory for us. Good job, people. Okay, that's it for tutorial. I'll briefly go back to your slides. Alright, thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you had fun building that game. If you have any questions, just shoot us in the social media pages, which I'll list again here. Alright, credits to Slides Carnivore for the slide format, as well as the creators of the pixel art. I got them from Open Game Art, which is a good place to get art and other pieces, as well as music too, actually, for Creative Commons 0. Thanks everyone, and have a good night.